I didn't lose my life all at once. I watched it slip away, payment by payment, while my phone stayed warm in my hand. I'm not telling this story because I'm proud of it. I'm telling it because pretending it didn't happen almost destroyed me more than the choices ever did. I was 29 when it started, living in a small, rented apartment on the edge of Manchester, the kind of place where the walls were thin and the windows never quite closed properly. In the evenings, you could hear buses braking outside and the radiator knocking like it was tired of working. I had a normal life. Not exciting, not dramatic. A steady office job, a boyfriend named Tom, and routines that kept the days moving without much thought. Coffee in the morning, emails, dinner on the couch. We weren't wildly happy, but we were stable. And at the time, that felt like enough. Then the job disappeared. One meeting, 10 minutes. A polite smile from someone who avoided eye contact. I remember gripping the edge of the desk while they spoke, my fingers pressing so hard they went numb. By the time I stepped back outside, my chest felt hollow, like something had been scooped out and left open to the air. At first, I told myself it would be fine. I had savings. A few months at most. I kept applying, refreshing job boards late at night with my laptop balanced on my knees, the room lit only by the glow of the screen. Each rejection email landed quietly, but they piled up inside me. My shoulders stayed tense even when I slept. My jaw ached from clenching it without realizing. Tom tried to be supportive, but I could feel the shift. The way he paused before offering to pay for groceries. The way I stopped meeting his eyes when money came up. I hated that feeling more than the fear itself. That's when I started seeing it everywhere. Short videos, casual conversations, screenshots of earnings posted like trophies. People talking about how easy it was, how fast the money came, how it was empowering. Just content, just a platform. Nothing serious. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night, the surface cluttered with unopened mail and a mug of coffee that had gone cold. My phone buzzed with another notification from my bank app. Balance lower than I expected. Again. I stared at the phone longer than I should have. My thumb hovered over the screen, not moving, while my breathing slowed and my chest felt tight. I told myself I was just curious. That looking didn't mean anything. The idea settled in quietly. That was the dangerous part. It didn't feel reckless. It felt practical. I told myself I would be careful. I would control what I shared. No face at first, just temporary, just until I got back on my feet. I repeated those words while setting up the account, my hands slightly shaky as I typed. The room completely silent except for the hum of the fridge. When the first payment came through, it hit me harder than I expected. 300 euros, just like that. I sat back in the chair and laughed out loud, a short sound that surprised me. My shoulders dropped for the first time in weeks. The relief felt physical, like warm water spreading through my chest. I stood up, walked around the apartment, and checked my balance again, just to be sure it was real. That night, I slept deeply. No clenched jaw, no racing thoughts, just darkness. The next day, I told Tom I'd found a small freelance thing online. Not a lie exactly, just incomplete. I watched his face relax, watched the tension ease from his shoulders, and something twisted in my stomach as I smiled back at him. The money kept coming, not huge at first, but steady, predictable. Every notification sent a small jolt through me. I'd pick up my phone without thinking, fingers already swiping, heart beating a little faster. I started keeping it face down on the table, like that somehow hid what was happening. I adjusted my routines without admitting it to myself, stayed up later, locked the bathroom door longer, closed the laptop quickly when Tom walked past. My body learned the movements before my mind questioned them. I noticed changes I didn't want to name. My hands would shake slightly before uploading anything. My mouth went dry when I pressed publish. Afterward, I'd sit, very still, on the edge of the bed, phone in my lap, staring at one spot on the floor while the feeling passed. I told myself this was temporary, that I was being smart, that I was in control. But somewhere between the second month and the third, I realized I hadn't applied for a single job in weeks. And that scared me more than the money ever could. By the time I realized something was wrong, it wasn't loud. It was quiet, too quiet. My days started blending together. I'd wake up late, phone already warm in my hand, notifications stacked on top of each other. Messages, tips, requests. I'd scroll before my eyes were even fully open. My chest would feel tight, like I'd already missed something important, like I was behind. At first, I told myself I was just being efficient, answering messages while the kettle boiled, uploading content while sitting on the edge of the bed. But soon, I stopped noticing when the kettle clicked off. I stopped noticing time altogether. I barely left the apartment. The curtains stayed half closed most days. Not because I wanted darkness, but because daylight felt exposing. Like it could see me. I'd sit on the couch in an oversized hoodie, laptop on my knees, phone buzzing every few minutes. My hand started to shake sometimes when I held it. I blamed caffeine, stress, anything but the truth. The money kept growing. Every time I thought about stopping, I'd open my bank app. The numbers were higher than anything I'd ever earned before. It felt irresponsible to walk away. Almost stupid. People would kill for this kind of income. That's what I told myself while my stomach stayed knotted and my shoulders ached from being tense all the time. I stopped telling anyone what I was doing with my days. When friends asked how work was going, I gave vague answers. Marketing stuff, freelance things, online. I got good at saying it casually, like it didn't matter. But every lie landed heavy in my body. I'd feel it in my throat, dry and tight, like my words were scraping on the way out. I started drinking more at night, not enough to black out, just enough to quiet the buzzing in my head. I'd sit on the floor, by the coffee table, back against the couch, bottle resting on the carpet between my knees. The TV would be on, but I couldn't tell you what was playing. My phone stayed face up beside me, lighting up every few minutes. Even drunk, I couldn't ignore it. I hated how quickly I responded. I hated how my fingers moved before I'd even decided to answer. Like muscle memory had taken over. Like my body knew what was expected of it, even when my mind didn't want to be there anymore. The comments started changing. At first, they were flattering, compliments, validation. Then they got more specific, more demanding. People asking for things I hadn't planned on giving. When I hesitated, some got angry. Others tried to guilt me. They reminded me how much they'd spent, how much they'd supported me. I'd feel this sinking sensation in my stomach, like I was being pulled downward, but I kept going anyway. I told myself I was in control, that I could draw the line whenever I wanted. But the line kept moving. One afternoon, I noticed my reflection in the dark laptop screen. I didn't recognize myself right away. My eyes looked flat. My face felt unfamiliar, like I was watching someone else sit there, hunched forward, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. I pressed my fingers into my thigh without realizing it, hard enough to ground myself. That was the first time I tried to quit. I deleted the app from my phone, closed the laptop, sat there with my hands resting uselessly in my lap. My heart was racing. I felt lightheaded, like I'd stood up too fast. The silence was unbearable. No buzzing, no alerts, just the hum of the refrigerator and my own breathing, shallow and fast. I lasted 3 days. On the 4th night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the time on my phone even though the app was gone. My chest felt hollow, empty in a way I hadn't expected. I kept thinking about the money I was losing every minute I stayed offline. I kept thinking about how easily someone else could replace me. By morning, my hands were shaking again. I reinstalled everything before I even got out of bed. That's when I understood something I didn't want to admit. It wasn't just a job anymore. It wasn't empowerment. It wasn't even about money. It was dependence. I needed the validation, the attention, the proof that I mattered to someone, even if it was transactional, even if it made me feel sick afterward. Without it, I felt invisible, heavy, like my body took up too much space for how little value I had. Then came the message that broke whatever illusion I had left. It was from someone I didn't recognize. No profile picture, no history. Just a link and a short sentence telling me I should see what was being shared about me. I remember staring at my phone for a long time before tapping it. My thumb hovered over the screen. My mouth went dry. My breathing slowed in that strange way it does right before something bad happens. When the page loaded, my stomach dropped. There were images of me, videos I recognized instantly, content I had only ever shared behind paywalls. My name wasn't there, but it didn't matter. The comments were brutal. Hundreds of strangers talking about me like I wasn't a real person, like I was a product they'd already consumed and discarded. I felt my legs give out. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, phone clutched in my hand, screen glowing too bright in the dim room. My ears rang. My hands went numb. I tried to swallow, but my throat wouldn't work. It didn't stop at one site. There were more links, groups, channels, my content spreading in places I had no control over, no way to take it back, no way to make it disappear. That's when the panic hit. Not all at once. It came in waves. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. I bent forward, elbows on my knees, phone dropping to the floor between my feet. I stared at it like it was something dangerous, like it might bite me if I touched it again. I kept thinking the same thought over and over. This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I was promised. But deep down, another thought was already forming, heavier and harder to ignore. I had no one else to blame. There was a moment when I realized I couldn't pretend anymore. It wasn't dramatic, no big scene, no final message. I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom, back against the bed, phone in my hand, watching my thumb hover over the screen. My legs felt heavy, like they didn't belong to me. My chest was tight, not panic tight, just constantly compressed, like I'd been breathing shallow for months and forgot how to take a full breath. I had already seen the links by then. Someone had sent them to me with a smiley face, Telegram groups, forums, folders with my name replaced by a number, my photos arranged like trading cards, comments underneath from people who had never paid me a cent, arguing about my body like it was public property. I remember my hands shaking so badly I had to put the phone down on the carpet. The fibers pressed into my palms as I leaned forward, forehead almost touching the floor. My mouth was dry. I kept swallowing like that would help. It didn't. That's when it finally hit me. This wasn't control. This wasn't empowerment. This was something I couldn't undo. I deleted my account that night. Not calmly, not ceremoniously. I rushed through the steps, heart pounding, convinced that if I moved fast enough, I could still outrun the damage. When the confirmation screen appeared, I stared at it for a long time. My reflection was faintly visible in the dark glass of the phone. I barely recognized my own face. Deleting it didn't feel like relief. It felt like standing in the aftermath of a fire, realizing the flames were gone, but everything else was still burned. The weeks after were quiet in a way that felt unsafe. I went back to a regular job. I sat at a desk again. I answered emails. I smiled at coworkers. But my body never fully relaxed. Every time someone laughed behind me, my shoulders tensed. Every time a phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. I avoided mirrors for a while. When I did look, I felt disconnected, like I was studying someone who'd made choices I didn't understand. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the faint cracks in the paint, listening to the radiator click on and off. Sleep came in short bursts. My dreams were crowded and loud. My parents and I didn't talk about it directly. We talked around it, about weather, about work, about anything except the thing sitting between us. My mother hugged me tighter than before. My father took longer to look at me when we spoke. I carried the weight of that silence everywhere. Therapy wasn't a breakthrough moment. It was a chair, a box of tissues. Me twisting the same bracelet around my wrist while trying to explain how something that made me money also made me disappear. How being wanted by thousands still left me feeling completely alone. Slowly, things shifted, not in big ways, in small, almost boring ones. I started sleeping through the night again. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I learned how to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. The internet never erased me. I had to accept that. Some versions of me will always exist out there, frozen in time, owned by people I'll never meet. That truth still stings. But it no longer controls my every breath. I'm careful now. With my boundaries, with my body, with the stories I tell myself about worth and survival. I don't pretend I was tricked or innocent. I made choices, but I also know why I made them. Fear can be persuasive when it speaks softly enough. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Fast money always asks for something in return. Sometimes it asks quietly, sometimes it waits, but it always collects. I didn't lose my life. But I did lose a version of myself I'll never get back, and I'm still learning how to live without her.